She was murdered and then had her remains fed to dogs. There's a reason that this is Brazil's most infamous case. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the murder of Eliza Samudio. Before we delve into today's case, if you're interested in listening to cases in longer form, I have over 50 episodes ready to stream right now over on the True Crime with Caitlin podcast, available wherever you listen. Eliza Samudio was the type of girl where no one had a bad word to say about her. She didn't have a bad bone in her body. Growing up, she was described as a dreamer. She had big dreams, high hopes, and aspirations for herself, specifically in the world of sport. Eliza loved to kick a ball about. She was very passionate about football and she would go out in the streets playing it all the time, and she was always the goalkeeper. She wasn't scared to fling herself all over to make some pretty amazing saves. Very Jordan Pickford core. She was hopeful that she would be able to do this what she absolutely loved as her full-time career, and so she left home at just 18 years old to pursue her dreams. She would move to another part of Brazil where initially she found it quite difficult to break out and make money for herself. She was a beautiful young woman, and so she got the odd modelling job here and there. However, for the couple of years that she stayed here, Eliza mostly supported herself by doing sex work. This wasn't a world that she wanted or intended to be in, and so eventually she moved to Rio de Janeiro. It would be here that she met Bruno Fernandes de Souza. Like Eliza, Bruno came from quite a poor background. Where he was from, people didn't make it. Bruno, though, had a passion for football, and he was described as an exceptional athlete. He was so good that he would actually go on to play for the Brazilian football team Flamengo as their goalkeeper. He was their team captain, and he was absolutely adored and idolised by the fans, and Bruno soaked all of this in. He absolutely loved it. Bruno soon began changing, and he went from a regular Joe to someone that even the closest people in his life didn't even recognise anymore. He would go wild at parties, going at it for days at a time. He would repeatedly cheat on his wife, who had been with him since he had absolutely nothing. At one point, he had like 7 girlfriends. And another fiancé. Eliza and Bruno met at a barbecue that they attended in 2009 that was being hosted by one of their mutual friends. And right off the back, the initial attraction was there. It was actually Bruno who went on to pursue Eliza. They began talking more, seeing each other more often, going out to dinner, and this progressed into a sexual relationship. Things seemed to be going well between the couple until Eliza revealed to Bruno that she was pregnant. Bruno completely denied that this baby was his, and he started being very threatening and abusive towards Eliza. He told her that she was going to have an abortion, and she completely refused. She didn't want to. But Bruno wasn't going to take no for an answer. In October of 2009, Bruno and a couple of his mates all pinned down Eliza, physically restraining her and forced her to take a tablet, hoping that this would bring on a miscarriage. After this, Eliza went to the police. She reported that they did this alongside beating her and holding a gun to her head, but nothing was done. She then tried to apply for a restraining order, and that too was denied. Bruno then started making horrifying and terrifying threats to Eliza, telling her that if she went to the police again, he wouldn't just murder her, he would murder her entire family and all of her friends because he knew where they all lived. When Bruno completely ceased communication with Eliza regarding the baby, she decided that she was going to go to the press, who at this point had been absolutely vilifying her. Journalists had been painting Eliza as a gold digger, someone who had purposely got herself pregnant by Bruno in an attempt to trap him, that she was psycho, that she was crazy, and on International Women's Day, during a live interview, they questioned Bruno about the alleged abuse, and he responded saying, quote, "Who hasn't laid hands on a woman?" He said that on International Women's Day. Eliza would give birth to a baby boy the following February, who she named Bruno, after his father. After all of the frenzy in the media and the entire of Brazil and all of Bruno's fans and supporters constantly hating on her, she decided that she was going to move away. She left Rio de Janeiro, moving somewhere where very few people knew where she was living. She did this for not just her safety, but for the safety of her infant son. Eventually, Bruno was able to track Eliza down, and it seemed like he had had a big change of heart. He was very apologetic towards Eliza, saying he was sorry and he regretted everything that had happened. He sold her the dream, telling her that if she came back to Rio de Janeiro, he would pay her child support, he would get them an apartment for them all to live in, and they would live as a big happy family. He was finally ready to be a father. Like abusers are so often able to do, Bruno successfully managed to manipulate Eliza and she returned to Rio de Janeiro. She arrived in Rio on the 4th of June and was picked up by some of Bruno's friends who were supposed to be taking her to one of his football matches. But when Eliza and baby Bruno got in the car, she quickly realised that that wasn't what was about to happen. Inside of the Range Rover, two of Bruno's friends got into an argument with Eliza, which resulted in them whacking her over the head with a gun as she is holding her 4-month-old baby in her arms. Eliza and baby Bruno would be driven over 280 miles away to a ranch that Bruno owned, and here they were held against their will for days. Some witnesses who were at the ranch, including Bruno's actual wife, claimed that Eliza wasn't held captive here or held here against her will, that she was free to roam around and do whatever she wanted. Other witnesses, however, recalled seeing Eliza getting brutally beaten, that she was assaulted, and that her screams were covered with pounding music. She had also had her phone and her money taken away from her, which, if she wasn't there against her will, they shouldn't have been able to do that. If she wanted to leave, how was she going to contact someone, and how was she going to pay for someone to help her? What exactly happened to Eliza days later was detailed in court by Bruno's nephew Jorge, who saw the entire thing. He alleged that Eliza and baby Bruno were forced into a car and driven away to their death on order by Bruno. They were driven to a house where Eliza was forced out of the car, leaving her son behind. She was taken to a room which was completely empty, the only things inside being a chair and a length of rope. She was restrained into the chair and pleaded with one of the perpetrators, a childhood friend of Bruno, to please not beat her anymore, to which he responded, quote, "I'm not going to beat you, I'm going to kill you." He then wrapped his arm around Eliza's neck in a headlock position and then strangled her to death. Jorge would then describe that Eliza was dismembered, that some of her remains were fed to the dogs inside of the house, and others were hidden in concrete and then put in the middle of the walls. Bruno Fernandes de Souza, along with 9 other people, would be arrested and charged in connection with the kidnapping and murder of Eliza. Baby Bruno was found alive and well, and custody of him was awarded to Eliza's mother. Eliza's remains to this day have never been recovered. It took years in court for Bruno to take any responsibility for his actions and admitted that Eliza was dead. Almost, if not all, of the witnesses stated that Eliza was only dead because Bruno had demanded it. The man who physically strangled Eliza to death was sentenced to only 12 years imprisonment. For his participation, Bruno would be sentenced to 22 years imprisonment. He was released in 2019, where only weeks later he was signed to a new football team and was able to pick up his career once again.